So with this video, I wanted to create a guide for people who are eyeing certain games, as well as expose them to new ones that they could be interested in, because nothing screams a potential buy louder than a game being cheap. It was how I found some of my favorite games of all time. Now, all of the potential prices and discounts I'm going to state are completely speculatory based off of past Black Friday pricing patterns, as well as the prices being relative to their console and release dates, so I might get a lot of these wrong, just fair warning. Before I get into the games and potential deals of 2021, I wanted to harken back to late 2020, where a lot of games came out that didn't receive significant sales during Black Friday, to serve as a refresher of what came out and what to keep an eye out for. First one up is Spider-Man Miles Morales. This was one of many PlayStation 5 launch titles, serving as a bit of a bridge between Spider-Man and the upcoming Spider-Man 2. It was a fantastic showcase for what the PS5 was capable of. Although the game is extremely short, it's a pretty fun game by itself with fantastic visuals, memorable characters, and it's freaking Spider-Man. Alongside the base game, if you purchase the Ultimate Edition or spend an extra $20 in-game, you can also get Spider-Man Remastered, which is an amazing game too, so it's a pretty good package. Look for the base game to be $20 to $25 and the Ultimate Edition to be anywhere between $30 and $40. Little Big Planet spin-off Sackboy: A Big Adventure is a Super Mario World-esque platformer. This is a game with a ton of charm, a lot of creativity and love put into the levels, and it's still getting support with occasional costumes of PlayStation characters. Not to mention, it's also co-op, so you can play with a friend and maximize your enjoyment as you both try not to get each other killed. The regular edition has been on sale quite a bit. The lowest price I saw was $30, but I think it will definitely be $20 on Black Friday. My eyes, however, will center more on the special edition, which comes with a Sackboy plushie. Like, seriously, how can I not own this? I don't know how drastically the price will come down on this version, but if it's $40 to $50, guaranteed buy. The first ever true PlayStation 5 title announced was Godfall, which got some pretty horrid reception for its non-existent and undercooked gameplay elements. There are a ton of videos as to why Godfall got the negative reception it did, so I'll keep it brief. Given its failures as a game and as a commercial product, if you had a passing interest in Godfall, you'll most likely be able to snag it for like $5 to $10. If it's not either of those prices, I would not recommend buying it. The highly anticipated Demon's Souls remake, the game where it all started, birthing both its own genre and the infuriating use of comparing everything to Dark Souls. When this game got revealed, this was the first game that had me saying, yep, this is next gen as fuck. It got a complete visual overhaul, performance upgrades, and that's about it. Bluepoint were pretty adamant on preserving Demon's Souls' triumphs and imperfections to the very end, so if you play the original Demon's Souls, you're not missing out on anything. If you haven't and you have a PS5, you gotta play it. Gauging the game's price point is a bit more difficult since Sony is selling their first-party PS5 titles for $70 now. Given that it will be over a year since the game's release when Black Friday comes about, I can see the price being between $30 to $40. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition is a game I have been holding the line on for an agonizing amount of time. DMC5 was my second favorite game of 2019, and it's the best hack and slash action title on the market right now. On top of a banging soundtrack and striking visuals, the replayability and room for player expression and creativity is off the charts. The Special Edition adds new performance modes, new missions, and you can play as Virgil, who has an absolutely sick looking moveset. This game has been discount deadlocked at $30. I have been waiting for it to be $20, and I strongly believe it will be. From the creators of Abzu, The Pathless is a game that I have had massive amount of interest in due part to its gorgeous art style, fantastic music, and a gameplay loop that looks serenic and tense at the same time as it rewards timing and accuracy with speed, but also produces some truly breathtaking dynamic scenery with its world and all who inhabit it. It got great reviews and it retails for $40, but I am expecting this to come down to the $15 to $25 mark. It has been on sale for $25 before, but me being the stubbornly frugal zealot I am, this is absolutely a buy at $20. Marvel's Avengers has been a disaster. I am sure most of you know why, so I won't go over it. I knew this game would disappoint when it was announced because that's just the cycle a lot of live service titles go in. Incomplete and aimless at launch, but over the course of 2 years or more, the games eventually find their footing and are well worth the wait, especially for those who didn't buy it in the first place. And while it is on Game Pass will not have Spider-Man. I will definitely buy and play this game if it is $10. If it's anything more than that,
go fuck yourself.
Cyberpunk is another game that promised everyone the world and gave us all a Tootsie Roll. I foolishly bought the collector's edition of this game for $250 because I was so hype and confident about it because I trusted a corporation like an idiot. The initial reviews and reports of its horrendous issues was so heartbreaking, I haven't even opened the box the game was shipped in. I am not even kidding, this is the box right here. This game was easily the most anticipated game of the decade, and now no one even talks about it because it was an absolute mess that did not deliver on any of its promises. It's the equivalent of season 8 of Game of Thrones. Unlike a TV show, however, you can continuously work on a game. Cyberpunk has been getting patches to fix it, even though some patches create more problems than it fixes, but that's an issue for a later day. This is in the same camp as Avengers for me, where I am willing to wait however long it takes until the game finds its footing because I have a ton of other games to play, so I'm not really in a rush to play it. I've seen Cyberpunk on sale for as low as $10, and I don't expect it to be any different on Black Friday either. If you're willing to shelve this game until it eventually becomes worth playing, $10 is a fantastic price. In a year where JRPGs such as Persona 5 Royal and Final Fantasy Remake were blowing people away, Yakuza Like a Dragon slipped under the radar a bit, but make no mistake, this is truly a top-tier JRPG. You have a fantastic turn-based combat system that surprised many at how robust and chaotic it was, tons of hours of content and side missions and dungeons, an impactful story that leads it to mark, great characters, some pretty awesome nods to other JRPGs, some of the best comedy in a video game, and one of gaming's most uplifting and life-affirming protagonists in Ichiban, who will easily win you over. Do not miss this one, it's a gem. Did I mention the soundtrack? Look for Yakuza Like a Dragon to be $20 or less. Ghost Runner is one of the most exhilarating games I have played in recent memory. On top of a slick and sleek futuristic cyberpunk aesthetic, the sense of speed and lethality you feel as you slice up enemies and hastily traverse through the awe-inspiring cityscapes is such a rush. It looks great, the soundtrack is great, the enemy and level design is great, and the action never fails to satisfy. Even as you die over and over again, you never feel discouraged. Instead, you are empowered to learn from your mistakes until you get over the hump and succeed. I thoroughly hope this game gets a sequel because the foundation of what is here is too good not to expand upon. Look for Ghost Runner to be $10 to $15. While I'm on the 2020 topic, I might as well just quickly run through a gauntlet of games from the rest of the year that you should keep an eye out for if you haven't bought them already. Okay, cool, here we go. DBZ Kakarot is an open world Dragon Ball RPG where you once again re-experience the Z Saga in video game fashion for the 100th time. Looks decent, got decent reviews, $15. Journey to the Savage Planet is a chill, colorful FPS where you go around a planet and solve puzzles and shoot stuff. Got really good reviews, $10. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is a certified childhood classic, and with Rehydrated, THQ brought the esteemed platform adventure game back to its glory in the modern day. Mario better watch his fucking back, $15. Dreams is a game where you make games and play other people's games. It's actually quite insane how many tools and things you can create with it. If it was on PC, it would be a much bigger deal, $10. Bloodroots is a high-octane beat-em-up in League with Hotline Miami. It's fast, it's bloody, it's fun, it's fast, bloody, fun, $10. It's Ori, bitch. Of course Will of the Wisps is amazing. It's on Game Pass, but if you want to buy it, $10. id Software, do not miss. Doom Eternal is orgasmic and better than 2016. Anyone else who thinks otherwise is wrong. Do not listen to those people. The two DLCs are amazing. The Horde mode is amazing, $15. Persona 5 Royal is one of my favorite games ever, and one of the best JRPGs ever made. Also kind of gives me Persona vibes though, $20. Resident Evil 3 Remake is an awful remake, but a decent game if you're binging the series like I did. It's worth it, but please play the original if you can, and hopefully that fake director's cut that keeps leaking is someday real, $15. Final Fantasy VII Remake is an innovative remake that actually understands how to make things fresh. It has a lot of dumb Square Enix bullshit in it, but the combat is amazing, and the world of Midgar and its characters are an absolute treat. Also, the next gen upgrade is free, $20. Streets of Rage 4 is a glorious revival for a beat-em-up franchise that has been dormant over the last 25 years, and man does it kick absolute ass. And the new DLC released this year is fantastic, $10. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is a much needed glow up from a game that looked like this. It's a forward-thinking JRPG that has left its mark, $30. The Last of Us 2 was pretty polarizing. I thought it was decent and insanely high production value. Try it out, some of you may like it, $20. Ghost of Tsushima is the greatest generic open world game ever made. It's also the most beautiful game I have ever seen. Look at the colors, look at the wind, look at the trees, look at that fucking grass! $20. Fast and the Furious Crossroads is a true evolution in the racing game genre. I'm just kidding. Do not buy this shit. Samurai Jack is a classic series, and Battle Through Time is surprisingly a really enjoyable game. It has cool combat, 6 set pieces, fan service out the ass, and it's Samurai Jack. $15. Mortal Shell is a worthy love letter to Dark Souls. It looks absolutely disgusting, which I mean in the best way possible. It is the Mortal Shell of Dark Souls. $15. Wasteland 3 is a squad turn-based RPG with a deep and reactive world, plenty to do, plenty to explore. $15. $15. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 are the goats of skating games, and these remakes do them justice in every way possible. $15. And finally, Hades is the best game of 2020. You should already own this. It's on every platform now, so you have no excuse anymore. $15 to $20. With that out of the way now, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to present you your guide to Black Friday 2021. IO Interactive revitalized the Hitman series to outstanding success, and Hitman 3 was a great way to cap it off as the studio moves on to bigger and better things. It featured even more depthful and expansive levels with so many dynamic elements of time, place, and materials. There are so many scenarios that the player can create to take down their target. I hesitated on buying Hitman 3 at launch because it looked like a facsimile of Hitman 2, and I didn't feel like spending full price on an experience I played through already with no notable changes or additions. And if you think I'm over exaggerating in that department, look at them side by side and tell me the difference. However, they did add all the levels from 1 and 2 into 3, and if you have not played Hitman before, this is a great cumulative experience with a lot of content to offer. Look for Hitman 3 to be $20. Although Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is not a true 2021 game as it came out in 2010, it was taken off digital storefronts for quite a long time, meaning no one could buy it even if they wanted to. Kinda reminds me of another game I know. Free MVC2, by the way, if that wasn't obvious. But it got re-released in a ceremonious fashion with all of its DLCs, and it made a lot of people happy to see this game return. Those who didn't get the chance to play the game prior to it re-releasing can now experience one of the most beloved beat-em-ups ever, and understand why the franchise has the cult following that it does. For people who like having physical copies of games, I have some bad news for you. Physical copies of this game were relegated to limited time releases, which are much pricier and now even harder to get. But if you don't mind buying it digitally, look for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World to be $10. The Medium is a unique horror game where you can freely switch between two separate realities whenever you want, making for some exciting sequences of action and puzzle solving. It got a lot of good buzz for its interesting story and horror set pieces, and while it isn't a blockbuster by any means, I do have an interest to play through this and see what the buzz is all about. I love horror games and I'm eager to try a new flavor. It came out in January on Xbox and PC, but recently came out for PS5 in September, so the prices most likely will vary depending on the platform. For Xbox/PC, I think it will be around $15 to $25, and for PlayStation, the price might be $30 and above. I remember being pretty excited for Destruction All-Stars when it was announced, because since the days of Twisted Metal, there hasn't been a game with vehicular combat that scratched that itch for me, and I thought with Sony's expertise in the formula that Destruction All-Stars would lead the charge in revitalizing a pretty niche genre. And then I played it. This game was disappointing in every way possible, from the insane amount of microtransactions to the game's mechanics. Like seriously, the driving and collisions felt awful. I cannot believe this game was slated to be a $70 launch title, so kudos to Sony, I guess, for making it free for a month instead. If you weren't able to get this on PS Plus when it was on there, I wouldn't recommend it unless you had a passing interest in the game, or you want to get a feel of what the potential next-gen Twisted Metal has in store. Anything more than $10 is not worth it in my opinion. Though there are many games that take massive inspiration from the Soulsborne series, Nioh transformed that inspiration into its own beast with a heavily Eastern traditional setting, a thoroughly expansive gear and ability system, and deep and technical combat mechanics allowing for expression and experimentation that no other game in the genre can rival, not even the OGs. Nioh 2 came along and was like, it improved on everything from its predecessor regarding the combat, the gear, and the bosses. And the best part is you can snag both of these games in the Nioh Collection, which are next-gen upgrades for both of these games. Both games are pretty hard, however, so if you don't enjoy games shitting on you until you get better, best to let this slip by. But for those of you who are looking for that challenge, look for the Nioh Collection to be between $30 and $40. Super Mario 3D World is amazing. Of course it is, it's 3D Mario. These games are in a league of their own. On top of a fantastic remaster of a beloved Wii U title, you also get a new Mario game in the form of Bowser's Fury, which mixes the elements of Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Odyssey. The result is another banger of a Mario game. Nintendo does not miss on their flagship titles. Where they do miss is their business sense. Nintendo will rarely provide a big discount for games on their platform, ever. I mean, Skyrim on Switch retails for $60, a game I could barter for using toothpaste and a used diaper with a local shaman. And per their history, games that come out in the same year usually only receive a $10 discount at max, so look for this to be $50. Not much of a deal, but take what you can get. A lot of Capcom's classic series have not seen entries in like 20 plus years. This new iteration of Ghosts and Goblins has been given much needed upgraded visuals that possess this child's painting-esque art style, yet preserves the classic BS feeling of its gameplay, as the game will constantly throw shit your way. It came out to pretty good reception, and it's a neat little title that can give a lot of today's generation an insight as to who the hell Arthur and Firebrand from Marvel vs. Capcom are. Look for Ghosts and Goblins Resurrected to be between $10 to $20. The original Little Nightmares was heavily underrated in my opinion, and I was psyched to see a sequel and getting the opportunity to venture back into a truly horrifying world where you are vulnerable at every turn. The game possesses a creepy claymation / puppet-esque art style with a unique gameplay mix of 3D platforming and 2D side-scrolling that makes its puzzles and encounters all the more intuitive. This is an extremely unique series and needs to be talked about more. Look for Little Nightmares 2 to be $10 to $20. Persona 5 is one of the biggest JRPG franchises of all time, so no brainer that it would get a spin-off sequel and another gameplay formula, and although it's not the spin-off I was particularly looking for, retaining the signature style of Persona 5 and transfixing its gameplay elements into what Koei Tecmo does best was a fantastic meeting of the minds, if you will. Combat is flashy and stylish and explosive. The Phantom Thieves are as charming and charismatic a group as ever. You will need to have played through Persona 5 to understand its character arcs and stuff, but even if you don't, Strikers is a really fun time and should absolutely be on your radar, whether you're a weeb or not. Look for Persona 5 Strikers to be between $20 to $30. The Monster Hunter franchise has blown up in the last 3 years or so, breaking out of the shackles of its niche roots into a wide appealing blockbuster property thanks to the success of Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter Rise takes World's infrastructure, which had a vast amount of weapons, items, and quest types, and adds some new worthwhile modes and mechanics into the mix, like the Horde Defense mode and the new Wire Bug that gives players a ton of traversal freedom to use in combat and exploration. Online multiplayer of up to 4 players is a blast to be had with your friends and with randoms, and the game is still getting post-launch support with a new expansion coming out next summer. Rise is coming to the PC next year, so in terms of fidelity and performance, a lot of people are either going to wait or double dip for Rise's PC port. But if you have a Switch and had an interest in the game, look for Rise to be around the $40 to $50 mark. Although he is best known for his infamous Game Awards antics and pissing off Jeff Keighley, co-op game visionary Joseph Ferris and his team are getting a ton of well-deserved recognition for their emphasis on co-op games with titles like A Way Out, and recently with It Takes Two, which most people are calling one of the most compelling and creative co-op experiences ever made. I haven't played this yet, because I don't have any friends, but this is one of the best co-op games on the market, and the best part is you don't even need 2 people to own this game. It's split screen, and if you want to play it online with a friend, only one person needs to own it, and they can invite the other player if they download the friend pass. Kudos to the team for this model. I never expected something with EA's name on it to be this generous. Look for It's Take Two to be $20. It's also on Game Pass. Outriders was a title that looked pretty cookie cutter and generic alongside its third-person looter shooter contemporaries. The game came out to a ton of backlash regarding its many bugs that proved to be quite a hindrance to its player base, and wasn't really able to sustain much of an audience. Outside of the bugs, the game's offering in terms of story, art style, characters, and gameplay was innocuous at best, drawing limp comparisons to games like Gears of War and The Division. I have not heard a single peep out of this game since it launched back in April, and in the words of the immortal G-Man Lives, Outriders is a game. It's on Game Pass if you want to try it out, but if you were looking to purchase it, $10 to $15 is the best selling point in my opinion. A lot of people's first introduction to the Nier series was through Nier Automata, which has been wildly successful and deemed a modern masterpiece due to an amazing gameplay narrative mix that had almost everyone who completed it go through an existential crisis. Also, to be. And for people wanting more of the series, what better way to ease them into it than a fantastic remaster of 2010's Nier Replicant, which has a completely different cast of characters and distinct gameplay characteristics. While it may not be Nier Automata, the game has its own offerings for people who have never played a Nier game. A lot of people are excited for the future of the series, so Replicant is definitely a must-buy for sure. Look for it to be in the $20 to $30 range. I used to play Pokemon Snap all the time as a wee lad because it was so cool just to act like I was on a Pokemon safari, taking taking pictures of various Pokemon in their elements as they walked around and got food, and just being with their kind. I could not get enough of it then, and the moment I get my hands on this new one, I probably still won't get enough of it still. Sure, the gameplay is just marveling at these majestic creatures as I perceive their daily mundane tasks to be the most adorable shit that I have ever seen, but that's all you need. The game looks gorgeous, and I can't wait to snap pics of Pokemon. If you're a big Pokemon fan, I don't see how this is not on your list. Look for new Pokemon Snap to be between $40 to $50. Enter Returnal, a first-party Sony title that does not follow the conventions of your Naughty Dogs and Santa Monicas. It's a roguelite bullet hell with one of the most interesting Lovecraftian video game spaces I have ever played through. I could not put this game down for the life of me because the combat was exhilarating. Exploring different alien biomes was a treat, and the way Celine's story is told in a psychological horror kind of way was really refreshing. While it is lacking in its roguelike elements, Returnal is an absolute must-play in my eyes if you have a PS5. It also just got an update with a photo mode and the ability to pause your runs. Look for Returnal to be in the $35 to $50 range. The long-running Oddworld series got a new entry this year, and it came out to mixed reception and due part to the game feeling stuck in the past gameplay-wise. It's a 2.5D puzzle side-scrolling platformer where you have to recruit people to help with puzzles as you try to liberate them while making sure they're in one piece by the end. I remember liking Oddworld as a kid, but upon playing through Soulstorm, I found the feelings I used to have about the series from playing Munch's Odyssey were through rose-colored glasses. Soulstorm felt way too antiquated for my taste, and I had to force myself to finish it. It's not a bad game by any means. Some of the puzzles and situations were pretty creative, but as a whole, it's just not for me personally. It was free for PS Plus members back in April, I believe, but if you didn't get it then and you had a passing interest about the game now, look for Oddworld Soulstorm to be between $15 to $20. Though Judgment came out in 2019, it got a complete remaster this year for next-gen consoles with updated visuals and performance in time for its sequel's release later this year. It's a spin-off of the wildly successful Yakuza series, carrying over its brand of exhilarating beat-em-up combat and comedic genius, while also establishing itself as a series that can stand on its own 2 feet. It's a great game. I highly recommend it. Did I mention the soundtrack? Look for Judgment to be $20. Resident Evil Village is the newest entry in the series, inhabiting a wintry gothic setting with some pretty wild set pieces. It is much more action-packed than its predecessor in Resident Evil 7, which was more focused on horror. Not to mention, the thirst for Lady Dimitrescu ended up being the game's biggest marketing point. I personally thought Village was a bit underwhelming in a lot of respects with its narrative and gameplay loop, and especially how little its world and characters are explored. I prefer 7 for sure, but it's still a pretty good game with a fun horror mode in the form of mercenaries, numerous incentives and unlockables for speedruns, and DLC coming down the line, so it's definitely a game with some legs. Look for Resident Evil Village to be $20 to $30. Though recent BioWare projects have been quite disappointing and even abysmal, it's hard to forget the masterpieces they used to deliver with games like KOTOR and especially the Mass Effect trilogy, regarded as some of the best RPGs ever made. And it received a modern day remaster that doesn't suck. It has improved textures and lighting, a lot of quality of life changes to the combat and exploration, and with all of its DLCs too, making it quite a colossal offering of content. I'm a huge fan of the game, so obviously I'm going to get it, and for those unfamiliar with the groundbreaking series, now is your chance. Look for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition to be $25 to $30. Biomutant had quite a lot of hype behind it, with the devs proclaiming it was like Breath of the Wild exploration meets Devil May Cry combat, which is a pretty tall order to fulfill. The trailers made it out to have an expansive and dynamic world with a lot in it, as well as a pretty over-the-top combat system to emphasize player expression. The game came out to pretty underwhelming reception due to its vapid open world, its writing, and its flaccid combat. A good chunk of people enjoy this game for what it is, however, as opposed to what it could have been, and that's probably its biggest appeal. If you're interested in Biomutant, look for it to be in the $15 to $20 range. If you didn't know, the Persona series is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, a property that isn't as glossy or high art as Persona, since it has a much more serious tone and grit to it that admittedly wouldn't resonate much with a wider audience. At least that was the notion back then. With Shin Megami Tensei 5 coming out very soon, the franchise now has the spotlight on it, and what better way to capitalize on that than remastering a cult classic for the modern day. With its dark themes, post-apocalyptic setting, and infamously fear-inducing turn-based combat, Kombat, there is no better time to get into it than now, especially if you're a Persona fan. I have never played an SMT game, so I'm pretty excited to start the series. If that's not enough, it also features Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Look for Shin Megami Tensei 3 Remaster to be $20 to $25. Knockout City was an unexpected ball of fun that most people didn't see coming. It's like a hyper arena shooter except you're playing dodgeball. On top of its colorful Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic, it was pretty easy to pick up and play. It's a shame that the initial excitement for the game has died down quite a bit due to the game's microtransaction model and the game's very simplistic mechanics harming its longevity as players grew bored of the game as they felt like it restricted creativity. It still has a sizable player base, however, and it's casual fun, so if you want to jump into it, look for Knockout City to be $5 to $10. It's also free this month on PlayStation Plus. When it comes to fighting games, everyone in the West knows about the Street Fighters and the Mortal Kombats and the Marvel vs. Capcoms and the Tekkens, but other fighting games typically have a much harder time appealing to the Western market in past years. However, fighting games are going through a renaissance phase of some sort lately, with more and more people taking interest in them, which is glorious news to a fighting game fanatic like me, meaning more games are getting their time to shine, and the latest one is Guilty Gear Strive, which is, bar none, the best looking fighting game ever made. Just look at it and tell me it's not stunning. I dare you. The Guilty Gear franchise, I felt like, never got the appreciation it deserved for its incredibly fun and deep gameplay mechanics, fantastic music, and the most creative fighting game character designs to ever exist. And yes, I will die on that hill. Strive does go down the path of simplifying its mechanics for accessibility, similar to Street Fighter V and Mortal Kombat 11, but unlike those titles, Strive has a lot of room for creativity with the Roman cancel mechanic and some very, very diverse character designs. It's an incredibly fun game that's still in its infancy phase with numerous patches and DLC characters on the way. It also has rollback netcode. Even if you don't like fighting games, I do recommend giving Strive a try. Did I mention the soundtrack? Look for Guilty Gear Strive to be in the $20 to $30 range. Although it came out in 2019, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid got a Super Edition repackaging with all of its current characters and DLC, including Ryu and Chun-Li as guest characters. It's a 3v3 tag fighter heavily inspired by Marvel vs. Capcom with rollback netcode and crossplay for every platform, plus there is more DLC on the way as well. This is an absolute crazy fighter that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and hopefully a reasonable price reduction will get more people to try it out for themselves. There is an upgrade path if you have the game already, but for the standalone Super Edition, look for it to be $20 to $25. It pains me to say that there most likely will never be another Jak and Daxter or another Sly Cooper. Insomniac, however, has not forgotten about Ratchet & Clank, which we should all be grateful for. I loved Ratchet & Clank as a kid, but I never thought the series would reach this high of heights in terms of its popularity, its longevity, and its willingness to innovate with each title. Rift Apart's main mechanic is that you can manipulate broken rifts to give yourself an edge in combat and to traverse to completely different levels at any time thanks to the power of the PS5. More specifically, SSDs. Not to mention, it looks absolutely stunning. Insomniac cannot miss right now. Rift Apart is definitely a must-buy if you have a PlayStation 5. Look for it to be $35 to $50. The hack and slash genre has produced some of the most thrilling experiences as well as some of video games' most iconic characters. Dante, Bayonetta, 2B, and even Raiden. A name often left out in the conversation is Ryu Hayabusa of Ninja Gaiden, mostly because he hasn't had a game in years and is relegated to just being an appearance in Dead or Alive. Though Ninja Gaiden's story is poo-poo, the gameplay is on a planet of its own. So when news of a remastered trilogy came about, I was hyped because I had an excuse to relive my childhood days of being readily abused and belittled by this game. The Master Collection did produce some levels of disappointment, as the Sigma versions for 1 and 2 were the ones in the collections, which are more functional and streamlined versions of the originals, but they're nowhere near as chaotic and tactical. Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2 would have been cool to include alongside the Sigma versions, but that discrepancy is only an issue for hardcore fans. Sigma 1 and 2 are still great games, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge is pretty good too, especially for newcomers, and I hope Ryu Hayabusa returns in a new game soon. Look for the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection to be $20. Operation Tango is a co-op driven game where both players have to coordinate and synergize in various espionage and puzzle-based tasks. The player assumes the agent, who is played in first person, and the other is a hacker who deals with stylized UIs with many different quirks to help get the agent moving. Operation Tango is a remote co-op experience through and through, however, so same screen co-op is sadly not an optimal option. It got solid reception though, got some free DLC, and also uses the friend pass system, so only one person needs to own it. Look for Operation Tango to be $10 to $15. Virtua Fighter 5 got revamped 15 years later for a modern PlayStation only release in the form of Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. It was remade from the ground up in the Dragon engine, the same engine used for modern Yakuza games, and my god, look at the glow up. The new visuals and new music are all fantastic. The gameplay for Virtua Fighter is as fun and fluid as ever, and it has quite a tall skill ceiling as well for those who want to play competitively. It was pretty clear that esports was the prime focus for this resurgence given the red versus blue motifs and the live replay slash spectating system in the menus, and while it doesn't have rollback netcode, it's decent enough and it's still a really fun fighting game. I hope this resurgence means we get a Virtua Fighter 6 in the future, but for now, if you didn't snag it when it was free for PlayStation Plus members, look for Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown to be $10 to $15. Final Fantasy VII Intermission is a DLC for the Final Fantasy VII Remake where you play as Yuffie in her own story. It's exclusive to PS5 only, and it's also included in the full Intergrade package, which is essentially a next-gen upgrade, which is also required in order to purchase and play the DLC in the first place. For any and all fans of FF7, this is definitely a must-buy, even though it is quite short. I'm not that big of a fan of FF7, but the DLC does tease some very interesting things to happen for the next part. I think the lowest the DLC could go is $15, but I'm not sure that will happen considering it has a prerequisite to buying it. The most cost-efficient route would probably be buying a PS4 copy for $20, upgrading it for free, and then buying the Intermission DLC for $20. That is, unless the $70 FF7 Intergrade version comes down to $35 or below. Yeah, that's decently convoluted, but I wouldn't expect anything less from the company that makes Kingdom Hearts. Speaking of JRPGs, Scarlet Nexus is a game that should not be slept on. It's an ambitious action JRPG pulling from influences of Devil May Cry and Persona that culminate into its own thing. Its futuristic AR anime art style and aesthetic is very eye-catching, and though the game does boast some pretty impressive combat mechanics and sequences, it also emphasizes its storytelling and its world building. So you're given a lot of reasons to try and connect with the world and its characters. It got great reception and it's also on Game Pass, but if you would like to own a copy for yourself, look for Scarlet Nexus to be $20 to $30. Death's Door is a game that oozes heart and charm with every frame that passes by. It does wear its Zelda influences on its sleeve for sure, but does so in a homage kind of fashion while also being able to leave its own mark. Its gothic and colorful art style is beautiful, the world building and its lore is immersive, and it has a great soundtrack accentuating the moments of action and discovery. This is a Game of the Year contender in my eyes, which most people may scoff at considering it's not a huge AAA title with big graphics. But don't let that fool you, Death's Door is a steal at its retail price, and it's on Game Pass too. But given the nature of the video, look for Death's Door to be $10 to $15. In anticipation for the upcoming Breath of the Wild 2, the recent remaster of Skyward Sword, a fantastic Zelda game that was originally on the Wii, proved to be quite an appetizer before the main dish because it's actually a really good port. A lot of quality of life changes were made, including retooling the Wii U's motion controls into a standard control set pretty beautifully, alongside visuals being crisped and colorized up a bit, and the game runs at a locked 60 FPS. Look for Skyward Sword to be between $45 to $50. Again, not much of a steal, but take what you can get. There wasn't just one Monster Hunter game that came out this year. Monster Hunter Stories 2 is a more story-driven game that takes the JRPG route with turn-based combat that utilizes a lot of the characteristics from the series' signature mechanics, like weapon types having distinct effects on specific monsters, various items giving you an edge in fights, and eating the right meals for the necessary buffs. You can also capture certain monsters and use them as allies. Think of it like a Pokemon game, but Monster Hunter. It's on PC and Switch, so I can see this being around $30 to $40. It has been 14 years since The World Ends With You came out on the DS. The game got a ton of praise for its visuals and characters and combat system and soundtrack, and it has been deemed a classic by virtually everyone who's ever played it. So it baffles me that it took this long to get a sequel, but it did, and a lot of people really like it. Its move to 3D hasn't compromised the charm of its semi-hyper-urban aesthetic, compelling characters, and increased layers of team-oriented beat-em-up hack and slash fun that seems to be the game's biggest strength. If you love the original game, Nioh is a no-brainer. If you haven't played it like I haven't, I think it's definitely worth a shot. Look for this to be between $20 to $30. What originally began as an expansion mod for Skyrim, the Forgotten City was one of the most ambitious and highly praised mods of all time, where you, the player, manipulated time as you tugged away at the dark mystery stenched around an ancient civilization. It was so successful, not only did it get a writing award, the creators of the mod decided to make a full-fledged game off of it. They spent a while working on this, recreating the game in the Unreal Engine, and the game's reception has been nothing short of amazing. It was credited to have some of the richest writing in a video game ever, and the game's non-linear nature and time travel mechanic makes way for players to immerse themselves in this world as they constantly find more and more threads to this overarching story. I never played the original mod, but I am really ecstatic to get my hands on this one. Look for the Forgotten City to be $15 to $20. Ace Attorney has burgeoned into a dearly beloved series. Games that were once secluded to smaller consoles have now become a widespread commodity on any platform. Previously, the prequel to Ace Attorney, Great Ace Attorney, consisted of 2 games that were made in 2015 and 2017 that were only in Japan and only on handheld devices. And with this year's Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, those 2 games have been localized for the West and brought to nearly every platform. You play as Phoenix Wright's ancestor in the 19th century, solving cases by putting your wit and knowledge to the test as you interview subjects and examine evidence for court cases. It got great reception from fans and critics alike. If you've played Ace Attorney before, it's a must-buy. If you haven't, it's still a must-buy. And while you're at it, go buy the Ace Attorney trilogy. It's worth it, trust me. Look for Great Ace Attorney Chronicles to be between $20 to $25. Are you the type of person that cannot get enough of the cyberpunk aesthetic? If you are, look no further than The Ascent, an isometric RPG twin-stick shooter that can be played with up to 4 people. This is without a doubt one of the best looking games of the year. I was awing at every second of the beauty I was beholding. The lighting and the textures and reflections and world design and districts and life forms all looked so good. It has a very grim tone underneath all the glowing sheen as the game explores the depths of a corporate dystopia. Nothing new for the genre, but the way The Ascent tells its story keeps things interesting. Not to mention the arcadey shooter action is always really fun to engage in. It has its fair share of bugs and performance issues, but nothing that will deter your overall experience. Look for The Ascent to be $20. The original Psychonauts was a staple of many people's childhoods for its unique charm and creativity, and like many other games to come out within that time period, it seemed like a potential sequel was never going to happen. Well, after years of crowdfunding and eventually being backed by Microsoft, Tim Schafer and the great team at Double Fine Studios were finally able to release Psychonauts 2 16 years later. It's a platformer action game where you venture into the minds of others and use your psychic powers to help them overcome their underlying problems, fitted with a great cast and narrative. Everything about this game has so much love behind it, and it resulted in critical acclaim. In today's gaming market, there's not many games like Psychonauts 2 anymore, so seeing this game succeed in the way that it has is just awesome. No physical copies are being released to the public, making it digital only. It is on Game Pass, but if you were looking to purchase it for yourself, look for Psychonauts 2 to be $25 to $30. Similar to Psychonauts 2, it's been a while since the last installment of No More Heroes, and No More Heroes 3 ups the ante from killing the world's top assassins to killing intergalactic supervillains. From lovable oddball Pseudo51, who by the way showed first ever gameplay for No More Heroes 3 but completely obscured it with his head as he rambled on about not playing Super Mario Odyssey yet. Yeah, that happened. No More Heroes is known for its juvenile and crass humor, quirky side missions, and all-out over-the-top action, and all of those components seem to have been tightly refined and expanded upon in No More Heroes 3, most notably the combat, which looks crazier than ever. I'm a huge fan of the franchise, and seeing the super positive reception for this game was quite reassuring and helped numb the pain of Travis just being a Mii costume in Smash.
Travis? Travis Scott?
If you're looking for a game out of left field, No More Heroes 3 is the way to go. Look for it to be $40 to $50. Also, 1 and 2 are on PC, so if you want to start the series from the beginning, give those games a shot too. Aliens Fireteam Elite is a 4-player co-op shooter set in the classic Aliens universe where you are tasked with killing xenomorphs and other hostile organisms. It got mixed reception critically, but a lot of fan reception has people saying that they really like it. Personally, it's not something on my list, but if you're a hardcore Aliens fan or you you want some quick thrills with your friends, look for this to be between $10 and $20. I think anything higher than that warrants waiting a bit longer. Severed Steel is what happens when Superhot meets Max Payne meets Mirror's Edge meets The Matrix, and it is fucking awesome. The sheer thrill of the tight gameplay, the feeling of locomotion as you slide and wall run and dive, paired with the moments where you slow down time to get some sick ass trick shots, is unmatched. I had an absolute blast with it, and even though you can beat the game in under an hour, the replay value the game has is off the charts, not only in the campaign but in the firefight mode where you modify conditions to spice things up. Severed Steel is 2021's most stylish shooter, and it is definitely worth checking out. Look for it to be between $10 and $20. Ghost of Tsushima got a pretty big DLC expansion with a whole new island and narrative alongside a true next-gen upgrade with up to 15 hours of additional content. Sometimes I boot up Ghost of Tsushima just to stroll around through its absolutely beautiful environments, and I've been looking for an excuse to go back and play it through in full again. I just found the $30 upgrade path a bit too steep at the time, so I held off on it, but I anticipate this will come down to like $15 to $20, and that's a fair price. If you're just straight up buying the full director's cut, however, it may be between $40 to $50. Fist Forged in the Torches is a Metroidvania with a heavy emphasis on close quarters combat. Similar to how Guacamelee approaches its combat, you can string various attacks together for devastating combos, especially as you get more weapon types for your anthropomorphic Jackrabbit to unleash hell with. The game also boasts a huge interconnected world with a lot of challenging platforming sections too. It has slipped under the radar quite a bit despite getting pretty great reviews across the board, so hopefully a lower price gives it the exposure it seemingly deserves. I'm pretty excited to play this. It looks like a really fun time. Look for Fist to be around $10 to $15. One of the few good 3D Sonic games got a remaster this year, and when it came out, man, the bugs and poor optimization were on a whole other level. But aside from the glitches that have been mostly patched, the remaster outside of the visuals doesn't offer much in terms of improvements, but Colors does sport the reputation of having some pretty imaginative level designs and the wisps that help transform Sonic and impacts how you're able to traverse through the levels. You get more as you progress through the game, so subsequent playthroughs are the ones where the game is truly at its peak. There have been a lot of pretty disappointing 3D Sonic games, but this one is not one of them. Look for Sonic Colors Ultimate to be $20 to $25. The Tales series got a new entry in its long-running franchise this year with Tales of Arise, which came out to great reception, with many marking it as the best JRPG of the year. I have never played a Tales game ever, but Arise definitely catches my eye in due part to its art style and extremely fun-looking combat. Not much else I have to say about it besides, I'm really looking forward to it. Look for Tales of Arise to be $20 to $30. Turns out there is such a thing as over-marketing a video game. Every Sony event since the PS5 reveal had a Deathloop trailer, and it was inescapable. State of Play, Deathloop. TV spot, Deathloop. Another State of Play, Deathloop. At the core of it, Deathloop is Arcane Studios' most action-packed game. It uses an interesting time loop mechanic that turns the game into a puzzle shooter of some sort as you piece together times and locations to wipe out the visionaries before you get killed by another assassin. The studio has always been very creative with their game ideas and concepts as displayed in the Dishonored games and their magnum opus Prey, which if you have not played Prey, you need to do that and then play Mooncrash. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Deathloop, while I don't think is anywhere close to their best work due to some AI issues and in-game concepts not going to the lengths they could have, the game's slick action and interesting world carries you through for a pretty fun time. Look for Deathloop to be $30. From the studio that made the legendary Majora's Mask fan film comes Kena Bridge of Spirits, easily 2021's most breathtaking game. Its Pixar visuals and stunning animation alone is more than enough to sell copies, and its gameplay is able to hold its own for the most part as its Zelda-inspired third-person action component leads to some dazzling set pieces. It is crazy to think that this is only a $40 game considering how much work and effort was put into every digital atom of the game to make it look gorgeous. Keep in mind, this is Ember Lab's first ever game. It got great reviews and has left most people excited for the future of Kena as well as the Ember Lab studio. Look for Kena Bridge of Spirits to be $20 to $25. Sable is a game whose distinct peach and apricot visuals are more than just eye candy. The way it utilizes visual storytelling without using map markers and objectives incentivizes players to roam free of deaded responsibility as you explore the world's communities and landmarks and naturally uncover things for yourself. You don't get a lot of games that try to do what Sable does. The only game I can really think of like this is Death Stranding. Also, Japanese Breakfast did the soundtrack and it is beautiful. Sable won't be everyone's cup of tea, but if you like what you see and want to experience that nomadic bliss firsthand, look for it to be $15 to $20. It's also on Game Pass. Speaking of Death Stranding, it got a director's cut of its own, adding more content in the form of story missions, new robots and tools to help your deliveries, and even a racing minigame. These additions, as well as a full repackaging of the game, proved to do quite a lot for its reputation. When the game first came out, it was pretty polarizing regarding its gameplay, and some of those who weren't clicking with it initially changed their minds after their revisits. Not saying this will be the case for everyone, but it is a pretty strong endorsement. The director's cut is currently exclusive to PS5, and there is an upgrade path that's only $10. If for some reason you really prefer the golden cover to the standard PS4 one, look for the director's cut to be $30 to $40. Lost Judgment is the sequel to 2019's Judgment, which just adds a walloping amount of content. New fighting styles, more narratively driven minigames in the form of school stories, and new gameplay mechanics such as stealth and parkour and taking your detective dog out for a walk. Lost Judgment is easily RGG's darkest game yet, but it's also their most ambitious one with how much is in the game. I'm currently playing through it right now and I'm having a blast. It does have problems for sure. I am working on an in-depth review that should be out by the end of the month if you're interested in hearing its strengths and weaknesses in full, but I still highly recommend it, and with Judgment getting a remaster earlier in the year, snagging both of these games is a no-brainer. Did I mention the soundtrack? Look for Lost Judgment to be $30. Lemnis Gate is a blending of genres I never thought would be possible. It's a turn-based arena first-person shooter that is driven by a time travel, time loop mechanic where you are given numerous opportunities to foil the opposing team's actions while they have the same advantage against you. Its concept is more than enough to pique my interest, but the game in practice is executed extremely well, coming out to some pretty glowing reviews. Lemnis Gate is definitely one of the most creative takes on the FPS genre that I've ever seen, and a lot of people say it's like chess with guns, which is a strong endorsement in my eyes. I'm quite looking forward to getting my hands on it. Look for this to be $15. Outer Wilds is one of the best games ever made. It's so great, in fact, I wish that Wesley Snipes and Dan Aykroyd from The Matrix were real and would memory erase me so I could experience it for the first time again. I was pretty hyped that a DLC was coming out for it and that it was taking the psychological horror approach as well. Though the concept of horror is nowhere to be cited in the marvelous base game, I'm always open to games trying new things with their formula. The DLC is priced at a modest $15, so the likelihood of it getting a price reduction at all is minimal, but if it does, look for it to be $10. Also, if you have not played Outer Wilds, play it. Cruisin' Blast is a trip down memory lane for those who reminisce the years of the arcade racers, with a lot of modern racing games prioritizing realistic driving experiences and 9/11 for some reason.
9/11.
9/11.
9/11. 9/11.
People are fucking scared.
Racing games that embrace the wacky, over-the-top carnage are often thrown off to the side in regards to the gaming market as a whole. That does not mean you should disregard Cruisin' Blast, however. And while no racing game can ever come close to the greatness of the split-second sequel that exists only in my head, this Nintendo exclusive proved to be quite a sleeper hit. It has a ton of racetracks and customizables. It's crazy racing fun. Look for this to be $25 to $30. Another fun racer you should keep an eye out for is Hot Wheels Unleashed. I never expected a game based off of my childhood toys to be anything of high quality. A lot of the positive reception highlights how tight and functional the cars are, so while the entry barrier is super friendly, there is a mastery to strive for. Another great feature about the game is the fact that you can make your own tracks with a robust amount of options and possibilities, and with the planned post-launch support that the game is going to receive, this game will definitely have legs for a pretty good amount of time. The negatives, however, include the coin economy inducing heaps of grind and lack of initial content, so the $50 tag was a bit too steep for most people interested in it. I personally feel like $20 to $25 is a fair price, but given how recent it is, it'll most likely be between 30 to 40. Melty Blood type Lumina is an anime fighter that I most likely would have never heard about had it not been for the current fighting game Renaissance. Based off of the visual novel, this fighter has a wealth of mechanics and combo permutations with rollback netcode, which is always a plus. In the short time I had with it, Melty Blood is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed exploring all the different combo routes, which felt like I could always push things further. The tutorial is fantastic, and the character designs were unique and had some pretty cool playstyles. Melty Blood is very well animated, but its mundane aesthetic just bores me personally. It is getting DLC characters and a decent amount of post-launch support, so while I'm not going to be sticking around for it, there is a sizable community that is pretty welcoming to newcomers, so it'll be around for a bit. Look for Melty Blood type Lumina to be $20 to $30. I have been hearing a lot of great things about Unsighted. It's an indie Metroidvania with a lot of distinct qualities about it that stand out and culminate into what many have called the best Metroidvania of the year, in the same year that Metroid Dread came out. So there is definitely something there. It has really stylish pixel art, a captivating concept about robots having to fight time for their sentience, and some pretty cool looking combat and exploration too. It's always nice to see a title developed by smaller teams get a ton of praise for their hard work, and I'm eager to experience just what the team at Pixelpunk has created. Look for Unsighted to be $15. Upon release, Far Cry 6 proved to be a Far Cry game for better or for worse. For me personally, I like the formula Ubisoft has going for it, where I don't have to use my brain, I can just shoot shit and take in the sights whenever I please. But I understand where others are coming from in regards to Ubisoft's hesitation towards trying new things. And if you're one of those people that want more from the series, I think 6 is not the game you're going to be looking for. If you want to blow stuff up and participate in check-in, yeah, check-in. This is the game for you. I think $15 to $25 is a good price point, but given how recent it is, it most likely will be $30 to $40. It has been 19 years since a proper sequel to a 2D Metroid game came out, and Metroid Dread absolutely exceeded its expectations and then some. I have a review out for it if you're interested in hearing my in-depth thoughts about the game, but to summarize, it's currently my game of the year and it's an absolute must-buy for Switch owners. It's a first-party Nintendo title that will only be over a month old by the time Black Friday rolls around, so if Nintendo feels generous enough to even allow a discount, look for Metroid Dread to be $50. Left 4 Dead fans have been waiting for a sequel for forever, and when Valve can't be bothered to develop games anymore, Turtle Rock Studios took the task on hand and said, fine, we'll do it ourselves. I really wish they hadn't. I don't like Back 4 Blood at all. I think it's a massive regression in every aspect possible from Left 4 Dead. Plus, the monetization and DLC model just reeks of the studio not learning their lesson from Evolve. But don't let my sour views on the game deter you from making your own decision. It's a 4-player zombie shooter where you can have fun playing with your friends as you mow down hordes and hordes of zombies. And if that's something that appeals to you, then Back 4 Blood is definitely worth a shot. It got good reception as well. For those who were curious or weary about it, it's on Game Pass to try out, and if you're looking to own it, expect it to be $30 to $35. From the creators of Slap City, the team at Ludosity were given the reins for a Nickelodeon platform fighter, and in my opinion have made a pretty fun game. The game's mechanics are quite refreshing in the platform fighter genre and leads to some pretty crazy tech and combo possibilities. The roster is Nostalgia City, the game's net play is solid enough, though it does need some tweaking. So while the core of the game is a big draw, its severe lack of content in every other area like single player modes, items, the soundtrack, no alternative colors, no voice acting, and so much more is what comes back to bite it in the ass, proving that gameplay alone is not enough to sell. As someone who loves this game and has competed in this game and has even made a review on this game, it's not worth $50. It doesn't help that anytime a platform fighter comes out, it gets compared to Smash, which has way more to offer at full price, but the team at Ludosity have been consistently patching and fixing the game and did the most they could with the scant budget they got. This game, in my opinion, has a great foundation, and I'm eager to see how the game evolves over time. Look for Nick All-Star Brawl to be $20. The latest game published by Devolver Digital is Inscription, a card-based roguelike puzzle-solving psychological horror escape room game that has come out to be quite a hit. It has fantastic reviews on on Steam, and the mere concept of it alone just has me eager to try it. I'm not one to play card games either unless it's Gwent or Yu-Gi-Oh! And Inscription looks like it will be another exception for me. Look for this to be $15. Riders Republic is the extreme sports game that I never realized I wanted. Ubisoft's latest venture into the realm of extreme sports has rekindled that wonder and joy I had when I used to play games like Tony Hawk American Wasteland or SSX or Freestyle. And oh my god, I can't believe I still remember Freestyle. That game was fucking awesome. Anyways, Riders Republic was a massive multiplayer game where you can participate in a wealth of adrenaline pumping races through different methods of traversal like dirt bikes, snowboarding, and even jetpacking. You can also switch between how you travel at any time as you explore its huge open world filled with races and stunts to do. This game just looks really fun, and I'm eager to fly and ride around and take in the sights as I please. Look for Riders Republic to be $30 to $35. Jet is an interstellar exploration game where you hover around planetary environments with their own biomes and terrain. Scouting the lands and wildlife is similar to, say, No Man's Sky's gameplay loop a bit, but the game's more arcadey and wide-shot presentation is something that draws me towards it personally. It looks similar to Journey in its nomadic zen-like quality, except nowhere near as visually captivating, and the narrative that was sprinkled throughout the trailers wasn't doing much for me, but given the fact that only 3 people were working on this game for a while before it got additional backing and staffing, it's cool to see this game finally fully realized. Look for Jet to be $15 to $20. The cult classic Alan Wake from Remedy Entertainment got a full next-gen remaster with the expected visual and performance upgrades. It runs smoother, it looks better fidelity-wise, although I prefer the original's aesthetic. If you like Control, I highly recommend giving the remaster a shot and see how the studio has progressed since then. I'm sure you'll love it. Look for this to be $20. You guessed it, another remaster, except this one in my opinion is the most hype remaster out of all the ones I've mentioned thus far. The Crysis series is phenomenal with some of the best FPSs ever made, with its massively satisfying gameplay loop where you are a superhuman killing machine. Every game in the trilogy got fantastic facelifts with universal lighting overhauls, extremely detailed textures, and much needed performance optimization so that any console and platform can now run Crysis without melting. Can it run Crysis? Yes. Yes, it finally can. There is clearly a lot of love and effort put towards preserving and enhancing the games in an evolutionary way. Again, if you have never played Crysis, now is your chance. Look for the Crysis Remastered Trilogy to be $25 to $30. When it was first revealed, Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy had a poor first impression as it looked lifeless and cookie cutter and frankly uninteresting. Not to mention Square Enix's previous Marvel titles stained any form of trust fans had. Upon release, however, Guardians proved everyone wrong, me included. A lot of great things have been said about this game, from its charming characters to its visuals. The most notable praise comes from the fact that Eidos Montreal were allowed to create their own adventure, not being constricted to being MCU-centric or as a way to milk money out of consumers who bought the game for full price already. It's a straightforward single-player game with a ton of production value, and the future for single-player focused Marvel games looks brighter and brighter. Look for Guardians of the Galaxy to be $30 to $40. It has been a while since Mario Party had a good installment in the classic series, since the more recent ones have been quite underwhelming. Mario Party Superstars breaks that streak, however, as a lot of positive buzz has come out about the game. It harkens back to the N64 days with classic maps remade in glorious fashion, alongside over 100 minigames from the series past, and stellar online functionality too. If only Smash had that. Anyways, Superstars is the most excited I've been about a Mario Party in forever, and I can't wait to destroy close friendships again with the turn of a dice. Not sure if this will even go on sale given its recency and Nintendo's stiff discount requirements, so if it does, look for this to be $50. As for games coming out in November, I think only a couple of them will receive discounts, most notably Call of Duty Vanguard and Forza Horizon 5. Vanguard is another Call of Duty that will most likely have a stellar single player, and that's about it. I can see Vanguard being like $45. A lot of people are loving Forza Horizon 5. It's another stellar entry in the fantastic racing series that's able to appeal both to motor enthusiasts and fans of arcade racing games such as myself. It also looks absolutely incredible. I think this one most likely will be $40 $40, but it's also on Game Pass. That is your 2021 Black Friday guide. I probably missed a lot of other games on here, so that's where you guys come into play. Comment down below what games you guys are looking for this Black Friday, what your list looks like, what you hope a game's price will be, were there any games in the video that now interest you that previously didn't, you know, all that good stuff. Also consider liking the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe as well, hit that bell, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. Good luck this Black Friday and happy Thanksgiving.